Breaking news. The high-profile sexual assault case against hip-hop moguls P. Diddy and Jay-Z has been dismissed with prejudice, meaning it's been permanently dismissed and cannot be filed again. And this is a major civil lawsuit too. It's the one involving Jane Doe, who claims she was raped by both Diddy and Jay-Z at a party when she was only 13 years old. For Law and Crime, I'm Sierra Gillespie. Now, news of this broke early Friday evening when we got our hands on the court docs. They're pretty straightforward too. Here's what they read, quote, "Pursuant to Rule 41A 1AI of the Federal Rules of Civil Procedure, plaintiff Jane Doe, by and through her undersigned counsel, hereby gives notice that the above captioned action is voluntarily dismissed with prejudice. Counsel for plaintiff have discussed this matter with counsel for each defendant who acknowledge and consent to this submission, dated New York, New York, February 14th, 2025. The court doc is short and sweet. That's really all it says. So we don't have the other details, like whether this was settled outside of court or whether Jane Doe suddenly felt there wasn't enough evidence in the case. And honestly, we may never know, given that it was dismissed with prejudice. Again, that means Jane Doe cannot bring a civil suit with these same allegations again against Diddy or Jay-Z. It's a huge win for Jay-Z and a decent win for Diddy too, though he still does face a slew of other civil lawsuits and of course those federal sex trafficking charges. Even though this lawsuit has been tossed out, let's still go through what Jane Doe was alleging. In the lawsuit filed last year, she alleged she was raped by both Diddy and Jay-Z at a VMAs after party back in the year 2000. Jane Doe alleges she was only 13 years old at the time. She was hoping to snag a ticket to the MTV Video Music Awards in September of 2000.
A viral 4-part video once sent shockwaves through social media, claiming that music mogul Diddy collapsed in court following recent developments in the Cassie case. This mind-blowing claim, featuring a man in an orange jumpsuit crumpling in a courtroom, instantly turned heads. However, the footage has since been debunked as misleading, though the ongoing drama surrounding the case remains all too real. Cassie, formerly known as Cassandra Ventura, steps forward with new evidence, and the layers of Diddy's legal and personal unraveling continue to grow more complex. So, what exactly is happening behind the closed doors of the prison and courtroom, and could these explosive new details reshape a legacy built over decades? First, dismiss the notion that Diddy has received a life sentence. No judge has issued that verdict, and no live-streamed footage confirms such a collapse.
Cassie Ventura's public comments coming just days after CNN exclusively obtained the graphic surveillance footage. CNN's Elizabeth Wagmeister broke the story and has this follow-up on Ventura's reaction. We want to warn our viewers, some of the images in her report are disturbing.
Cassie Ventura breaking her silence for the first time since CNN uncovered this disturbing video showing music mogul Sean Diddy Combs violently throwing her to the ground, then kicking and dragging her. On Instagram, Ventura thanking family, friends, and strangers, writing, "The outpouring of love has created a place for my younger self to settle and feel safe now. But this is only the beginning. My only ask is that everyone open your heart to believing victims the first time." The surveillance video from 2016 also shows Combs throwing a vase at then-girlfriend Ventura in the hallway of a Los Angeles hotel. The security camera footage seeming to corroborate part of Ventura's 2023 lawsuit against Diddy, alleging he punched Miss Ventura, giving her a black eye, then took glass vases in the hallway and threw them at her. The lawsuit since settled also referenced this.
I gotta give a special thank you.
A 2022 acceptance speech in which Combs spoke of Cassie in a much different light.
Also Cassie for holding me down in the dark times. Love.
But now, with the ugly truth of his abuse caught on video, Diddy took to his own social media Sunday to respond.
I mean, I hit rock bottom, but I make no excuses. My behavior on that video is inexcusable. I take full responsibility for my actions in that video.
Instead, he finds himself detained at Brooklyn's Metropolitan Detention Center, facing serious charges of coercion and abuse spanning several years. The viral video series, originally posted by TikTok user Wade Wilson Cree on November 11th, quickly gathered over 400,000 views. It featured a montage of images, a man in a wheelchair, a sudden collapse, and a sense of defeat. Yet, beyond the digital noise, there lies a far more unsettling narrative, a once celebrated music executive now struggling under the weight of his own actions. Reports suggest that during the Christmas season, a time that should have been filled with warmth and family, Diddy experienced a severe meltdown while incarcerated. According to one source, the record producer, whose physical appearance has noticeably deteriorated, pleaded with prison guards to take him to a hospital for observation. His request was reportedly denied, leaving him to battle panic attacks during what many describe as a nightmare holiday.
P. Diddy leaves the Metropolitan Detention Center jail in Brooklyn. New reports say he was taken to the hospital for a few hours last week to get an MRI. We're just now learning about this, though, because Diddy was taken from the jail late at night, actually using the cover of darkness to keep his trip on the down low. So what do we know about this trip? We're going to go through everything we know so far, plus a little more. We're actually going to sit down with Dr. D. Wayne Hendricks, a former corrections officer and deputy warden at MDC, the very jail Diddy's being held at right now. But before we get into all of that, here's a quick recap of how we got here. In September of last year, Diddy was indicted by a federal grand jury on charges of racketeering conspiracy, sex trafficking by force, fraud, or coercion, and transportation to engage in prostitution. Those charges came down after multiple civil suits against Diddy were already filed, accusing him of facilitating a decades-long sex trafficking ring. Post-arrest, the civil lawsuits just keep on coming. Right now, we're actually at more than 40 filed against Diddy. There's an eerie pattern shown throughout all of these civil suits and the criminal one too, that Diddy or his associates would drug the victims, rape them as part of what he called freak-offs, and recorded it. He then used that recording as blackmail to force the survivors to keep quiet. But let's just keep in mind, all of this is alleged at this point. Diddy has already pleaded not guilty to his federal charges. But just last week, we actually got some new info about those charges in a superseding indictment. To start with the very basics, the feds now say Diddy's alleged sex trafficking scheme dates back to 2004, whereas in the original indictment, it listed 2008. Here's what it says, quote, "From at least in or about 2004 through in or about 2024, Sean Combs, aka Puff Daddy, P. Diddy, Diddy, PD, Love, the defendant, and others, known and unknown, were members and associates of a criminal organization, the Combs Enterprise, or the Enterprise. Members and associates of the Combs Enterprise engaged in and attempted to engage in, among other activities, sex trafficking, forced labor, interstate transportation for purposes of prostitution, coercion and enticement to engage in prostitution, narcotics offenses, kidnapping, arson, bribery, and obstruction of justice." This new indictment also ups the number of victims. At first, only one victim was listed in the indictment, which some believe is Diddy's ex-girlfriend and the first person to file civil suit against him, Cassandra Ventura. An updated portion of the superseding indictment reads, quote, "Combs and other members and associates of the Combs Enterprise wielded the power and prestige of Combs's role at the Combs business to intimidate, threaten, and lure female victims into Combs's orbit, often under the pretense of a romantic relationship. Combs then used force, threats of force, and coercion to cause victims, including but not limited to 3 female victims, victim 1, victim 2, and victim 3, to engage in commercial sex acts." The new indictment got a bit more specific in all of this too, doubling down on the allegations that Diddy took victims across state lines and sometimes even internationally to sexually assault and record them. The feds explained all of this too, writing, quote, "Combs subjected victims to physical, emotional, and verbal abuse to cause the victims to engage in freak-offs and other commercial sex acts. Combs maintained control over his victims through, among other things, physical violence, promises of career and financial opportunities, granting and threatening to withhold financial support, and by other coercive means, including tracking their whereabouts, dictating the victim's appearance, monitoring their medical records, controlling their housing, and supplying them with controlled substances. During and separate from freak-offs and other commercial sex acts, Combs, among other things, hit, kicked, threw objects at, and dragged victims, at times by their hair. These assaults often resulted in injuries that took days or weeks to heal. Following the assaults, Combs, with the assistance of members and associates of the enterprise, frequently worked to conceal his misconduct by offering to provide medical assistance or other financial benefits to the victims. A different part of the indictment reads, quote, "When employees, witnesses to his abuse, or others threatened Combs's authority or reputation, Combs and members and associates of the enterprise engaged in acts of violence, threats of financial and reputational harm, and verbal abuse. These acts of violence included arson and multiple acts of kidnapping, including one instance of kidnapping during which Combs carried and displayed a firearm. In addition, on multiple occasions, Combs threw both objects and people, as well as hit, dragged, choked, and shoved others. On one occasion, Combs dangled a victim over an apartment balcony."
Despite promises from his high-powered legal team for swift bail, the reality that he remains behind bars intensifies the scrutiny. Meanwhile, a court order has even mandated the destruction of his jail cell notes, an unprecedented move that highlights the controversial nature of his detention. The plot thickens with the emergence of Cassie's lawsuit, which shifts the focus from mere courtroom theatrics to deeply personal allegations. Cassie, once romantically linked to Diddy, has come forward with accusations that have shocked the music industry. In documents filed in federal district court in Manhattan, she claims that after they met in 2005, when she was just 19, Diddy began a calculated pattern of control and abuse. The lawsuit alleges that the mogul not only manipulated her career and personal life but also subjected her to repeated physical and sexual abuse. Cassie recounts harrowing experiences, including being forced into unspeakable encounters with male escorts during so-called freak-off sessions and enduring violent outbursts that left her physically scarred and emotionally shattered. One particularly disturbing account in the lawsuit claims that in 2016, Diddy followed her into a hotel elevator and assaulted her. CNN later released footage offering a glimpse into the turbulent reality behind the headlines. While Diddy issued an apology video on Instagram, expressing regret and claiming to seek therapy and rehabilitation, the damage had already been done.
Disturbing new video appears to support some of the accusations of abuse against music mogul Sean Diddy Combs.
We want to warn you that this video you're about to see is extremely graphic. The surveillance footage that was captured inside of a Los Angeles hotel in 2016 allegedly shows Combs assaulting then-girlfriend Cassie Ventura in a hallway. A now settled lawsuit filed by Ventura claimed that she was trying to leave the hotel after a drunken Combs punched her. The video appears to show Combs chasing her down the hall, throwing her to the ground, and then repeatedly kicking her. So far, there's been no comment from Combs or his attorney.
It's now been 1 week since the arrest of Sean Diddy Combs.
Diddy is now at the Metropolitan Detention Center in Brooklyn, a place that's been described as hell on earth. Fox 8's Lisa Evers is at MDC right now on Diddy's life behind bars. Lisa, what are you finding out tonight?
Well, Natasha and Steve, for the first time in his life, Sean Diddy Combs has spent a week behind bars. He's here inside MDC, where he's been since his arrest on Monday night on federal sex trafficking and other charges, to all of which he's pleaded not guilty. There's no VIP section. There is no concierge, only conmen, killers, and kingpins. MDC is so bad, federal judges have questioned the harsh conditions for those here awaiting trial. So bad, I was here 2 years ago during a cold spell, reporting on detainees with no heat, pounding on windows for help. There was even a congressional inquiry. But take the word of a former inmate I spoke with who goes by Esco.
It's terrible. The food is terrible. Of course, the inmates are terrible. The guards are terrible. The conditions are terrible. It's just terrible.
The inmates that you're surrounded around, just in general, a lot of them are brought up on pretty heavy federal indictments, right? So just in terms of the atmosphere there, it's just certainly one that no one wants to be in.
Combs was placed in a special housing unit and on suicide watch, the standard protocol for high-profile celebrity detainees. The disgraced mogul was denied bail by 2 separate judges. His attorney, Mark Agnifilo, asked the court to transfer him to the federal detention section at the Essex County Jail, but the judge deferred to the Bureau of Prisons. Federal trial attorney Philip Hamilton says lockdown can mean a lot less time to prepare your defense.
In terms of fighting their case, it just makes it all the more difficult, because now in terms of you being able to communicate with your attorney, you are at the realms of just what's going on with respect to the facility. Is it on lockdown? Is the facility letting visitors in?
The contrasting narratives are stark and disturbing. On one hand, there's a viral, sensationalized video showing a collapsing mogul meant to shock and captivate. On the other, there's the grim reality of a man under immense pressure, physically and legally, his personal demons laid bare for the public to see. Diddy's deteriorating condition in court, his public breakdown over the holidays, and the mounting weight of Cassie's evidence converge to paint a picture of a once powerful figure now besieged by his past misdeeds. Legal experts warn that the challenges facing both sides are monumental. For Diddy's defense, dismantling a narrative built on years of alleged misconduct and personal breakdowns will require more than just countering the sensationalized footage circulating online. It will also involve addressing the very human vulnerabilities that have emerged, such as his reported meltdown during Christmas and his visibly altered demeanor in recent court appearances.
I want to bring in Larry Levine. He is a former federal prisoner who served time at 11 institutions of various security levels in 5 different states, and he now advises people who are about to go to prison. As the founder and director of Wall Street Prison Consultants. And of course, he's a friend of the show. So breaking news right now, Larry, I am just getting word. People magazine says it's got a source on the inside that tells them that P. Diddy's on suicide watch tonight. Do your sources confer the same information? Are they saying it was possible?
Hey, real quickly, all that commissary stuff, he's not getting any of that because people in the SHU have an abbreviated list. So he's out of luck. No stake for him. Yeah, he is on suicide watch. This guy thought he would have went home. All of a sudden, he didn't get bond. Remember, the first night that he was there, he was like an overnight guest. When they called his bond hearing, now they checked him into the system, and reality has hit him. And I understand that he has a shrink coming by his cell to see him several times a day. And now there's talk about putting him in, it's like a bubble. It's like a cell that has like a plexiglass wall in it where they have inmates watching you. That's actually their job, to keep an eye on the inmates that are on suicide watch. Another error that I guess some warden told you this. There are sentenced inmates there. They're called cadre inmates. They don't have to be white collar inmates, but they're doing maintenance on the building. And the problem why there's a lot of violence there, they have housing units. And they're mixing bank robbers, drug dealers, rapists with white collar people. And this is why Diddy, he can't go into a regular housing unit because somebody will take him out for sure. Somebody's going to get a lot of street credibility out of this. People that are doing substantial time that know they're never getting out, they'll just kill the guy. No questions asked.
You think that they'd suck up to him because he's got a lot of money, and if he ever does get the commissary options, he would be able to help them.
Some people do because
I got to wrap it real quick.
Okay, some people do think that Diddy can help him, but this guy's going to be locked up forever. His case will probably take at least 3 years to litigate. He'll stay at MDC. There's rumors that he wants to go to Essex County Jail in New Jersey because he doesn't like MDC. He's a Marshals inmate. There's no way they're going to transfer him back and forth, I don't know, several times a week, 6 Marshals to do it. He's out of luck.
Meanwhile, the prosecution must navigate the treacherous waters of public opinion, ensuring the powerful and often polarizing nature of the case does not taint the jury pool before the trial even begins. Adding to the tension, the destruction of Diddy's jail cell notes, a move ordered by the court, has sparked controversy. Critics argue that it could hinder the investigation into his time in custody, suggesting that the documents might contain crucial clues about his state of mind and the systemic issues within the detention facility. These actions only deepen the mystery and fuel speculation about what else might be concealed behind closed doors.
Diddy Combs has been denied bail in connection with the sexual abuse and sex trafficking charges he faces. And as Les Trent reports, the music mogul who once traveled by private jet to all those mansions is now in a jail that is notorious for its bad living conditions.
Music mogul Sean Diddy Combs spent his first night behind bars inside a facility that is being called hell on earth. The Metropolitan Detention Center in Brooklyn is notorious for its appalling living conditions and rampant violence. How bad is it inside this federal lockup? There have been 2 murders, 4 suicides, and numerous stabbings and lockdowns in recent years. It's so out of control inside that 4 federal judges are reportedly refusing to send any more prisoners here. Donald Trump's former fixer, Michael Cohen, spent a harrowing year in federal custody. He says for someone used to a life of luxury like Diddy, prison life is a severe shock.
For Cassie, every new detail brought to light is a step toward reclaiming her narrative and challenging a system that has long protected powerful figures at the expense of vulnerable voices. Her decision to file the lawsuit under New York's Adult Survivors Act, a law designed to give survivors a final opportunity to seek justice, signals a turning point not only in her own life but also in an industry that has struggled for years to address the abuses hidden behind fame and fortune. As we watch these parallel stories unfold, the debunked myth of a courtroom collapse and the very real, heart-wrenching allegations in Cassie's lawsuit, a crucial question remains: will the truth finally pierce through the carefully constructed facades of celebrity power, or will the whirlwind of media speculation continue to distort the facts?
At this point, we all know who Diddy is, right? You know, he has a huge empire until that came crashing down, and now he's in jail charged with sex trafficking, among other things. By the way, which he pleaded not guilty to. But he's been slapped with a number of lawsuits accusing him of sexual misconduct, including rape and assault, which he also denies those allegations too. So here we are, around 40 lawsuits deep, a trial that's right around the corner. But one thing maybe Diddy didn't expect was the largest department store in the US calling him an equal opportunity predator. Yup, those exact words. So let me explain. Back in October, a client of Tony Busby filed a lawsuit against Diddy accusing him of orally raping him in a Macy's stockroom. Now, this alleged attack happened back in 2008. John Doe says at the time he was working for Echo, the rival clothing company to Diddy's Sean John brand. Both of those clothing lines were carried at Macy's. On the day this allegedly happened, John Doe says Diddy entered the stockroom with bodyguards, who were armed by the way. Doe claims one or more of the guards hit him, or he might have been pistol whipped, which caused him to fall to his hands and knees. Now, Doe says one or more of Diddy's bodyguards threatened to kill him, but then Diddy demanded he perform oral sex on him. The plaintiff described in his lawsuit the oral rape went on for about 2 minutes. And after the attack, Diddy grabbed a bunch of Sean John merchandise from the stockroom and began passing it around to a crowd as if nothing happened. So beyond this allegedly happening in Macy's, what does this have to do with the department store? Well, they're named in the lawsuit as a defendant. According to John Doe, 3 weeks later, the CEO of Macy's pressured Echo executives to fire John Doe because he signed a multi-million-dollar deal with Sean John Clothing. Now, John Doe also believes the assault was destroyed or purged from Macy's records and no action was ever taken. So that was laid out in the lawsuit filed in October. Now,
a source has stated that Diddy has some of the most powerful people in the country under his control, and all of this was a planned conspiracy. Diddy's victims reportedly predicted that there would be fires, and he had a habit of gaining leverage on those who could come against him, which now appears to be part of his backup plan. Stay tuned as we continue to peel back the layers of this complex case, where each new development adds fuel to the fire and each revelation brings us closer to understanding the true cost of power gone awry. If you want to stay ahead of every explosive update in this high-stakes battle, hit the like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications. The truth is on its way, and you won't want to miss a beat.